Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, Fearless Females. I'm so excited you've joined us again. I am thrilled with the guest that we have on today's show, Sheri Fitts. And I've been in a couple of different classes with her and just seen her through the years. And she's so outgoing and kind of vibrant. And she brings such a breath of positivity and joy. And I love that about her. But the thing that I got most out of this interview was she said at one point, she said, find a place where you can go help. She said, in doing that, you'll find mentors, lifelong friends, and opportunities that you never expected. And I love this thought because some of the best career moves that we make, they don't really come from job postings or perfectly planned trajectories. They come from people you meet when you least expect it. They come from the moments when you basically roll up your sleeves and serve. And not because you're looking for a reward, but because you genuinely want to contribute. And Sheri's journey has just been a series of those kind of opportunities where she saw a need, whether it was starting in the WIPN Women's in Pension Network with a small group of women who kind of saw a gap and a need in the industry, or whether it was launching her own conference from scratch. She didn't wait for that perfect moment or even to be invited to make a difference. She just said, where can I add value? And she started serving. And I love that idea of that servant leadership and that growth and the many, many opportunities that come because of that. So let's get started with Sheri. Good morning, Fearless Females. Today we are here with Sheri Fitts. She is CEO and founder of a firm that's been through many different iterations and is Fitts & Co. She's a keynote speaker and a founder of Sway Live. And she's got a really interesting story. I was privileged to go ahead and hear Sheri at one of the conferences that I attended. And I just really am excited to let you hear what she has to say and hear her story. So thank you so much, Sheri, for joining us.
Lorie, it's wonderful. And congratulations on your podcast and your, the new things that you're doing. I'm so excited to hang out with you today. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better and hear a little bit more about your journey. And I always start with the same question because I love it. I'm a reader. I love any and all suggestions. What's your favorite book?
Wow. Well, I've got to say that one of my favorite books is a book by Elizabeth Gilbert, and it's called Big Magic. And it is really about the idea that creativity and ideas, in fact, are almost like beings. And if you don't honor the idea, it might fly away and find somebody else. And I've always thought about that. I've always said to friends when they come up with an idea, I'm like, do it now or somebody else will do it. And so it's funny that she has that belief. But Elizabeth Gilbert, I've been following her for a while. And in addition to that book that I love, she also, she was the Eat, Pray, Love author. But she's got a new book coming out in September. And right now she has something that's a Substack community called Letters from Love. And it's just a beautiful community where she sends out a newsletter every Sunday about writing yourself a letter from love every week. It's just beautiful.
Idea.
Yeah, it's really sweet. Yeah.
I read Big Magic and I loved it too. The part that got me is the idea of fear. Fear can ride in the back seat, but fear doesn't get to drive. And that really spoke to me. I think that I didn't love the Eat, Pray, Love book, but I really, really liked the Big Magic. So I think that would be interesting to see what she has. Letters from Love. Is that what they're called?
Letters from Love. Yes, Letters from Love.
We
Yeah,
could
it's
all use
beautiful.
just a little bit more love in our lives, don't you think?
Heck yeah. Yeah, indeed.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, Sheri. Where did you get started? How did it kind of go? Is it a straight path or a loopy path? And where are you at today? Kind of what do you do? Just tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, let's see. I won Paper Girl of the Year in 1976. So I've been in communications for forever. No, I've been in financial services actually for half my life.
Uh-huh.
So for more than 30 years now. So you guys
Mhm.
can do the math. I'm 63. And I started as a graphic designer. I started as a graphic designer when graphic design was moving from the standard kind of design to computer aided design. So that's how I got in, was via my perspective of using technology.
Mhm.
And in 1998, the materials that I was creating, so I was designing 401k education and communication materials. And in 1998, I actually started selling those materials
Mhm.
to regional banks and record keepers, because at the time in the 401k world, there wasn't this bundled approach with education and everything all in. So
Okay.
many of the bank and regional TPAs and whatnot, they didn't have their own education department. So those were my target clients.
Mhm.
So US Bank and Kansas City United Missouri Bank, UMB Bank, and Bank of California and Bank of Hawaii, those were clients of mine that used those 401k materials that I created.
Mhm.
So, I was using technology to do design work. Then I got into sales, and that's how I ended up in marketing, really, is because I had a sales goal. I had a national reach with no marketing budget. And because my boss was the kind of guy, literally, that he cold called Phil Knight.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't believe in marketing.
Okay.
And what I had to do then is just really get creative and scramble and hack things. So I was doing email marketing back in 1998,
Wow.
which wasn't a thing really. So, and I was doing thought leadership marketing back in 1998. So I was doing whatever I could to serve my prospects and whatnot. And I started actually doing some speaking at conferences as well.
Mhm.
And then in 2003, I left that organization and I went to work for US Bank in a sales capacity, wholly sales capacity in their institutional trust and custody department. Big word for saying
Mhm.
that predominantly I was selling services and solutions related to benefit plans, 401k plans, etc.
Okay.
And right after the Standard Insurance bought an organization called InvestSmart, again, way back in 2000, and I think, golly, 4 maybe. Who knows? It all's a blur. I went to work and I ran the communication and marketing for Standard Insurance's retirement plan division.
Uh-huh.
So, and then hopscotched to LPL Financial to run their marketing for their retirement plan division. And it was at that time that I got my little AARP card in the mail. So, for those of you who don't know, when you turn 50, AARP knows somehow that you've turned 50, and they will send you a little, begin to kind of market to you as somebody who is one of their target clients. And
Uh-huh.
I thought to myself, gee golly, I guess I'm, grown up now, because I've been saying for the longest time, when I grow up, I want to be a speaker and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And when you get the AARP card, with the, I just started to ask myself, what is it going to take? When are you going to do this?
When are you going to
So
be
that's
grown
when I
up? Huh?
started my own business. Yeah. That's when I left corporate America on purpose, golden handcuffs be damned, and
Oh,
started my
wow.
own firm. Yeah. Woo. Yep.
That sounds scary. And how long have you been running your own firm? And it sounded like there's like different iterations of the way that your firm has gone.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, when I first left corporate America, I had a creative services firm. So we did white papers and business cards and brochures and websites and LinkedIn posts and everything and anything related to financial services. So we kept it in a niche. And I had a team and a cool office with brown walls and Japanese lanterns and the whole thing. And in 2017, my sales plummeted. I took my eye off the sales ball.
Okay.
And I just had to, shut my creative services firm down pretty rapidly to just be me. And that's when I decided I was going to actually just be a speaker and focus on that. And thankfully, I've got to say, a firm snatched me up to be their chief marketing officer. So I kept my foot in the speaking side. And then I was also a chief marketing officer for a firm out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And then that contract ended in 2020.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in on the speaking thing in, March of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of curious. But so that's still I've always had a speaking component for the past 12 years. I would say, Lorie, I was kind of chicken to just lead with speaking. Like that wasn't enough, that I wasn't enough somehow. And it took me a long time to see that there's value in the ideas that I can share and the inspiration that I can make happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And people do come away from those sessions with like ideas and ways that they can do better and just feeling filled up. And so that it brings its own kind of, I don't know, just growth and stuff like that. Like it is enough. That's what I'm saying. It is enough. So,
Well, I deeply desire to make sure that people walk away with one idea they can do, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
yeah.
So I really work on that when I speak. Yeah.
Well, good. That actually it happened. I did come away with one idea and a few more actually. So that's good. But what were you speaking about? Was it all the marketing piece or talk to me a little bit about that? Like when you gave up all of the corporate stuff, what were you trying to?
Well, when I started out, so I've been teaching the financial services industry since 2006 how to use LinkedIn. So I did speak a lot about LinkedIn, and interestingly, I still do because people still don't get it, which is just amazes me because it's been around for 20 years now. But
Yeah.
and what I really think is hilarious is when I go speak at universities, all the college kids or all the college folks are like connecting with me on LinkedIn now. They think it's the coolest thing. I'm just like loving it. So, I would do that and I would talk about marketing, kind of very, very strategic kind of things. And my message has evolved over the, many years. I think you probably, know this from just doing podcasting. You get more and more comfortable with your own voice and your own ideas. It's like a muscle. And so for me, I constantly look out to the following year and think, what are the trends that I'm seeing? How do I stay viable and valuable? And more importantly, how can I help the financial services industry stay viable and valuable? And so really lately, I've been doing predominantly two key kinds of presentations. One that's really heavy on emotional intelligence, and the other one that's really heavy on artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been doing, and what I've also been doing is the intersection of those two together. So how can you use AI to get better at emotional intelligence, like EQ? So I've been doing a lot of that. I just, I'm curious. I've always leaned into digital. And so I just, I follow my little rabbit trails and who knows what I'll come up with.
Oh, I like that. That's a really, I am financial services and I need a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan. like triplicate sort of spreadsheets around. So this idea of like, looking to next year and seeing what's relevant makes me like hyperventilate and panic. But I love I love that you're doing that you're like taking it as it's coming, because we wouldn't have known really that AI was going to be the next big thing until it started being the next big thing. And then, and everyone jumped on that bandwagon, but kind of knowing how to take the pulse of the market so that the people that you're trying to help are getting fresh and interesting ideas. I think that's really important, and staying flexible enough to do that.
Well, and I follow my curiosity, Lorie. So, like, as an example, when it comes to AI, I was experimenting with AI about a year and a half before ChatGPT came out. I was using a platform called Jarvis, and now it's called Jasper. And I was, I've got to create content, right? And so I was using it to optimize my headlines and maybe streamline bullet points or whatever. And I was still feeling really uneasy about using it. And the minute ChatGPT came out, I was teaching people how to use it because I'd already been using AI for a year and a half. So, that was definitely a smart move on my part.
Well, yeah, and remaining relevant and kind of seeing what's coming down, it's a talent too. You can't always predict, well, you can't ever predict the future, but a lot of times you can kind of see it coming, and you know where to maybe turn. Tell me, Sheri, what's the best investment you've made in yourself? Is there an investment or something that you've done that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did that. I just don't think I would be where I'm at today if I didn't.
I would say probably there's two. One, back in 2003, when I was at US Bank, I started to go to the National Speakers Association meetings here in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a professional speaker. And then I think it was in 2005, maybe, I'm not sure, that I decided to take their speaker accelerator class where you learn from some wiser speakers about running the business of speaking. What are the things that you need in order to pitch a speech? That kind of thing. That was certainly, from what I always, when my friends talk to me about wanting to be a speaker, I always send them to the National Speakers Association because that's the percolator for the business of running a speaking business. So that was probably a really good investment for sure. And then the other one was that I decided to launch my conference. And who launches a conference? I mean, and I gave myself 5 years. And the reason I did that was because I do lean into innovation as a skill set regularly. And I often am ahead of the financial services industry. And so my challenge is, I feel like, as an example with LinkedIn, I had a LinkedIn course in 2015 about social selling. I was too early and I thought I was too late.
Oh, yeah.
So I gave myself a 5-year window for Sway Live to become what I had, the vision I had for it. And the first year we had 25 people. Last year we had 75 people, and this year we're going to have 150. Or I should say, I'm going to cap it at 150.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's pretty, and so that investment, I deeply desire to create a place for people to come to dive into expressing who they truly are. And so I'm not a big fan of like personal branding being all tied up and, wear the right color and that kind of thing. I'm very much in the camp of it's, live a purpose-filled life with a heart of service, and that's your personal brand. And so It's been great to see the community grow, and that was a really good investment too.
Yeah, I love that idea. If you build it, they will come, is basically what you're saying, right? Like first you build an authentic, real you, and people will come to that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing of it is a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we have great ideas and then we go, here's a great idea, here's a great idea, here's a great idea. And sometimes we just need to slow our roll and let people have a chance to kind of catch up to us and understand what the idea is. And a conference, a new conference on the docket, that's a challenging thing to ask for somebody's time for 3 days. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you've been so successful at it too. And what did you think that first year you put it on and 25 people came? Did you think, oh, great, perfect, this is wonderful? Or did you think, gosh, maybe not so many?
I set my goals for 50 people and I was disappointed. But from the minute it started, I wasn't disappointed at all because it was absolutely perfect. It was perfect. And then last year I wanted 120. And holy criminy, I'm learning as I'm going along what it means to sign a contract and all of those things. And goodness help us if we had 120 people there, because we wouldn't have fit in the room that they said we would fit in. So I'm really, getting better at what my requirements are. Like we don't have any more than 4 people at each table because we want to allow for intimacy and conversation and not having 8 people at a table yelling at each other,
Oh yeah, that
because
makes
you
sense.
can't hear.
Yeah.
So when there's 4, you can lean over or you can lean this way, and it's super easy to have a conversation even with 4 people, right? You can all put your heads in and you've got your own little space. So that's why we're having 150 people there this year. And that's all because I have to have it in a spot that is big enough for 300 people, right? Because if I have 4, usually there's 8 people at a table or 6 people at a table. There's only 4 at each table. So I've got a lot more tables.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the worst advice someone gave you, Sheri? Did you ever get some really bad advice and did you take it or did you not take it? Did you learn from it?
Well, okay. So I've been in financial services for 30 years and I've been in a sales and outwardly facing role many times. And I've worked in, a very male dominated arena. And I would come home from work and I'd be overwhelmed and full of rage because I got passed over for something. Because a guy had a family, and so other guys decided that that was better to take care of him. I had a family. I was a single mom, but, that wasn't viewed in the same light. And I would come home and I would just be filled with just sorrow and rage. And my sweetie pie thought it was all my fault. You know what I mean? And it wasn't. It wasn't. It took him a while to kind of understand it. Like, oh, wow, you do work with all men. Yeah, I do. Oftentimes the only one at the table. So certainly I am responsible for how I process things and what I choose to do with that information for sure. But I wasn't not performing. It wasn't it. It was I was a woman. Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't your fault that these opportunities kept going. Did you see that? You've been in financial services for 30 years now. Did you see that dynamic change or not? No, huh?
I don't know really.
Okay.
I think that, sadly the conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion are like a bad thing to talk about these days. But I think that my experience has been when there are different voices at the table, there's different kinds of creativity and different kinds of talents. And, that can only lead us to being able to serve different kinds of people. And there are so many people that need to be served by financial services. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I was very excited when I spoke at a University of Florida event recently, and there were about 1/3 of the students in the room were women. So I was excited about that. Yeah.
There are a few more female faces, and I've been in financial services now for 15, 16, 17 years, so about half the amount of time that you were. And I know that when I started showing up, I was one of two. So I wasn't the only one, but I was usually one of two. But now I see that I'm one of three or one of four. And so we are
Yeah.
getting, bigger representation, but I have certainly had conversations with when you're the only woman in the room, the only one there. And I never really thought about how a male dominated industry did things like promotions and raises, and you didn't have the network that a lot of the men had, and you didn't have the opportunities to have a lot of the network that the men had.
Yeah. And I gotta say, the other part of it is that I had many men who were my mentors and supporters,
Mm-hmm.
and they lifted me up at every opportunity. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I stand on their shoulders.
Yeah. I found that as well, that there are
Yeah.
men out there, many of them that want their wives, their daughters, their aunties, their sisters, they want them to do well and show up in this space.
Yep.
Like, I've talked
Yep.
to a lot of different financial services firms where they're like, we'd hire a woman, show us where one is.
Mm.
So, what
Yep.
about, Sheri, is there a situation that you can kind of look back on, and I'm not going to say regret, but that you would do differently if you knew what you know now back then? Would you have changed the way you'd handled something, and how would you have changed it?
Well, I can't think of the specific time, but I will tell you that I think that um, it came to me last year, and I'm doing some marketing work for an organization as a contract, and I've always loved being part of the sales team. I love
Mhm.
being part of the sales team. Like when I took that job as a CMO, I went in there and the first thing I said was, okay, when's the next time you have an opportunity to sell something? I want to help you do that first. Like, sometimes chief marketing officers come in and go, we need to rebrand and we need to do this. And I'm like, no, we need to sell.
Yeah.
And I think, that's one of the things I'm a little bit different. And I think that's kind of irritates marketing sometimes, is that I'm more sales leaning than I am marketing leaning. And what occurred to me was that marketing is built for strategy, sales is built for speed. So there are two different mindsets. Like marketing is working on, oh yeah, if you get a brochure in 3 months, it'll be perfect. And that sales is like, I need that brochure tomorrow because I've got that conversation tomorrow. And I
Mhm.
think that's where the disconnect is.
Uh-huh.
And if I would have known that a little bit earlier in my world, I might have not locked horns in as many, because I'm a redhead. You can't tell. Keeps getting darker, but I I think I would have not been so put my head down and charge forward. I could have managed that differently. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's interesting too that you gravitated so towards that sales role, because you traditionally don't find a lot of, women in the sales role. That's probably how come there's not as many advisors that are women, that you find them more in the supportive and the back office roles. So tell me how you got, like, do you just show up one day and you're like, oh, sales is where I'm meant to be, or I loved it, or tell me about that?
Well, what's interesting is I was at that investment consulting firm back in 1994 when I started as a graphic designer for the education and communication thing. In 1998, our salesperson left. And so I
Mhm.
was de facto head of a department without anybody selling anything. And that was very concerning because then, you don't nobody's selling your product, you're not going to survive. And I was out there hunting for a salesperson, and two people who I worked with who were on the consulting side of the thing, the advisor side of the thing, sat me down and said, Sheri, why are you hiring a salesperson? Why don't you be the salesperson? And it never occurred to me that I would be the salesperson. But I went along on a couple of sales calls just to learn what you're supposed to do, right? And then I was off to the races. And that, with me in the sales, lead sales for that division, as well as running the top line and then the bottom line, running the operations or overseeing the operations, that division was profitable for the first time in its existence. So, the first thing I did when I took over was raise prices. And then when I started selling, I did not sell individually. I started looking for, selling multiple subscriptions, not just one subscription, as an example. So, the newsletter, I think it was at 20,000 printed versions, and I changed it to 750,000.
Wow.
So I was able to do a couple of different things, sell, and then also manage the print production because I had that skill set so that we could have even more timely newsletters that we could get out to the market. So it was very fun. It was really a really great time of learning and growing, for sure.
Yeah.
And now people send me their sons and daughters who are in marketing, and I always immediately tell them, get into a sales role.
Well,
if you want to have credibility in marketing, right?
Yeah. Well, and that kind of goes back to your idea of like, if you had maybe had a little bit more understanding of sales and marketing and how they work together, you could have helped a little bit earlier, So I wonder if that's, like there is a divide there in the sales and marketing teams. If you can bridge that gap, like the sky's the limit, really.
Well, there's a new role that's starting to happen, which is sales enablement, which is taking the stuff that marketing does and making it work for sales. Sales enablement, which is a perfect role for sure. And I'm glad that exists for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's really interesting, and it kind of does fit a lot of traditionally women are communicators and collaborators. And so that idea of like communicating and collaborating between these two maybe differing ideas is a really interesting place to be. And I didn't realize that they were coming up with a sales collaborator or sales helper. But I think that's a really great idea.
Well, here's the one thing also, that when you're thinking about salary, when you go into a sales environment, a sales dollar is a sales dollar is a sales dollar. There's no moving around it. You've got the compensation structure. Everybody has the same compensation structure. You sold 25,000 XYZ. Somebody else sold 20,000 XYZ. You're going to make more than them because of how the sales commission structure works. So, I would love to see more women in sales capacity in our industry, for sure.
Yeah, me too. If you could go back and talk to yourself at the beginning of your journey, 20, 21, 22, 18, somewhere around there, what would you tell her?
Well, I didn't go to college. Well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't finish college. And I remember for like my 10-year high school reunion, I wrote an essay about everything that I learned after, I left high school, and it had nothing to do with college and everything to do with, me having a son, in fact. So I think I would probably let her know that, not everything has to be tied up in a bow and perfect, like, what you see in the movies. That's probably what I would.
that life
she's
can be
enough even
beautiful.
without school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's neat. And there are a lot of paths to success. I think that I was just talking to somebody else about this, how like the young people nowadays are like, you do this and then you do that and then you do that. And it keeps you from seeing maybe some of the more beautiful pieces of your life. If you follow a prescripted path, sometimes you miss out on things.
Have you seen the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay. Well, in it, she's fighting with some bad guys, and they flash back to her like spinning one of those, mattress signs, like she's using it to bash, the bad guys, or
Uh-huh.
or she's doing something and she's rolling them up in like a rug, like a burrito, and it flashes back and she's making a burrito at the Taco Bell. I mean, it's so hilarious, but it flashes back to her learning some random skill in her past and how it's still serving her in the present. And for me, that is the thing that's been so much fun. Is I still continue to design. I still continue to do print production stuff, and I just designed a full page ad for Sway Live last week. I mean, I love the fact that all of the parts and pieces of who I am continue to kind of show up, and I'm grateful for it every day. I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the path may not have been straight and prescribed and perfect and spreadsheeted, but it was exactly the path you needed to be on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sheri, what scared you the most when you started your career? And does it still scare you today, or did you learn how to combat that?
Well, I didn't, the biggest thing when I started the sales part was just even knowing how to have a sales conversation, and never having, like, feeling like I never had any formal sales training. And it's hilarious, that US Bank then put me through sales training, and that's all out the door. But sales conversations, I think I'm done being afraid of them. I think,
Mhm.
and I think that this came up just even with my son a couple weeks ago, because he started a new role in a sales environment. And I said, babe, don't worry about selling anybody anything. Worry about helping them, get their message out, because he works
Mhm.
for the ABC affiliate here. Help them find a way to get their message out. That's what you're doing. You're not selling advertising, you're helping them get their message out. And if
Mhm.
you come from that place, you're going to get your fair share, right? And so for me, having those sales conversations, I'm still getting better at it. I wrote a blog post about it the other day. I've decided, instead of calling it a call to action, I'm calling it an invitation.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Doesn't sound so much like you have to do this as much as, hey, let's just get together.
Yeah. Like, come along. This is fun. If it doesn't work for you, that's totally cool. You can RSVP, yes or no.
Yeah. I like that. That's cute. I think
Yeah.
that's a really neat idea because you do have those, sales is hard, and I I tend to not actually want to say that I'm in sales. I don't actually think I am. I feel more like I'm educating, helping, problem solving. So I like the idea of like, how can I help? Like, what can I do to help you out? And that is a much more authentic and happy place for me to be than, um, can you buy now? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels better,
Hmm.
right? Feels better for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah.
Then I'm helpful, right?
Yeah. And it just feels like service. Service is a good thing to be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and that's what, we spend our whole lives doing, is just helping and serving and being there for others. So, what about any unique challenges because you were a woman?
Hmm. Walking around a conference in high heel shoes. Damn.
I know those conferences are like 20 miles long. And if
I
you
love
get a
that there's
pair of high heels that is
right.
getting blister on your feet.
Like you think you have to. I got rid of all my high heels when I left corporate America. Now I just have cowboy boots. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit jealous. I'm not even going to lie. I'm a little bit jealous. So
yeah, I got rid of all of my suits that looked like I, was trying to look like a football player, right, with shoulder pads and dress up like a
yeah.
man and be what we think is. It was so cute when I was at University of Florida, and all the students, they were all dressed in the same attire that we would ascribe to financial services: a dark
Mhm.
suit, dark jacket, blue
Mhm.
shirt, button up shirt underneath. The guys were wearing, regular shoes, loafers, and women were wearing high heels. It was just like, oh my gosh, they just
Yeah.
have this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so glad I gave up high heels. Woo.
Yeah. Yeah. I I I do tend to, once you reach a certain age, I think I've decided that I don't have to wear high heels and I can wear a little bit of color every once in a while. So I
Yep.
think that comes with being more comfortable with yourself. But I've heard that so many times and I felt it, like personally felt it in financial services where I had to show up, I had to be wearing the black or the dark colors or the, and I couldn't put a hint of motherhood or children into my speech or dress or mannerisms, and it feels sometimes like you're bringing only half yourself to work.
Exactly. Exactly.
What is the thing you're most proud of, Sheri?
Well, my son, but all I did was, decide to have him at 23. He just is an amazing man and a
Mhm.
beautiful father. And, it's been it's been a tough time for him. If he he had his own little hero's journey and into the, veil of darkness. But I love my relationship with him, and I get to go and hang out with my granddaughter now. And so I'm most proud of him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite inspiring what these children turn out to be and who they turn out to be.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good man.
Any
Yeah.
advice for a young lady who's just starting down the path you're successful at? Like if someone was starting today, what would you tell her to help her be successful like you?
I would say, one of the biggest things you can do, and certainly what was helpful for me, was I was part of two very large communities. So when I was in Portland, I was part of the Portland Female Executives community, and that allowed me to test my leadership wings a lot, and that was phenomenal. And then in 2008, 2009, I got together with 12 other women, and we started a organization called WIPN, Women in Pensions Network. Now it's We Promote something, Inspire, something I can't remember, but WIPN. So whippen.org. And that community, by, giving of myself to that community, I have dear friends that are now all over the United States. So my thing really is for anyone just getting started, find a place where you can go help.
Mm,
Find a place where you can go help, because there are so many places that need help. And in doing that, you'll be rubbing shoulders with people that might be lifelong friends or mentors or whatever,
mhm.
So find a place, be of service for sure. Yeah.
I like that. I love the Whippen organization, and I think they do great things, and they've got really good research, and it's grown huge. We just had some sort of a birthday party, and it was yeah, it was like
15 years.
yeah,
15
great.
years. Yeah, we
Yeah.
started with 12 women. Our first event, we had 85 women. I remember sitting outside in Arizona with the 12 women who started the the first event, and we were sitting there celebrating and talking about what was going to be next after it. And a guy walked by and went, "Where's the men in pensions?" And we're like, "Look around, dude." So yeah, Whippin has been, watching Whippin. I just, I still have dear friends who are all over, still involved, and I still dip my toe in on the regular. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you find it resourceful too.
And I do think that it's an important idea to kind of find your tribe, find where you belong, find the people that are going to help you get there. Like, if you look and act like the people closest to you, find people that have your same mindset, growth and positivity and helpful and giving back. Like, find those people, and then you really can do. One person can do really amazing things in this life. So thank you so much, Sheri, for your time today and for sharing your story. I've really appreciated it. If I have a young lady who wants to get in touch with you and ask some questions, how does she reach you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. So just, we'll say it and then Siri will want to get involved again, but it's just linkedin.com/in/Sheri Fitts. You can find me there. Just make sure you put a little note in that you were listening to Lorie's podcast. So, because I get some people that invite me and I have no idea who they are, and I always want to make sure I protect my network. So I'm discerning on my LinkedIn invitations, but you can also find me at sherifitts.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Sheri, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your story. I've appreciated it.
Thank you, Miss Fearless Female yourself.